Good afternoon, everyone. I am your host, Shaki Gatson, here on the ListNing Project. And today we have Mr. Trevor Taylor. How are
Yeah,
you, good sir?
doing amazing. It feels good to be on the south side of the equator, representing from
Okay.
from Peru, but always representing hometown.
What's hometown for you, good sir?
San Antonio, Texas, the one and only.
Ooh. And you said you are in Peru. Tell the people how you got to
Peru.
First of all, the power of the internet and social media, alongside faith, is necessary. I had a friend of mine who I had never met him before. He had been living here in Peru for the past 3 years from Jersey. He was putting together a retreat. It was during my birthday, and I said, I would love to come out there. I'll help you promote it. Give me the discounted rate. We'll do this thing together. But in the process, I was also helping my partner sell her house in Seattle, and we thought the house was going to sell in like 3 months. It sold in 72 hours, and yeah, that shortened our timeline. That had us say, okay, we got to make some decisions. Are we going to do the thing we've been saying we wanted to do for the past 3-4 years, or are we going to postpone it and try to play it safe? But everything was just clear. Like, if you want to make the opportunity, if you want to have the opportunity to like live your dream, Trev, you better do it right now. And so yeah, we said yes. We, instead of getting a round trip for the retreat, we just did a one way. Took all three dogs. Never been to Peru. We just got the one way. Flew out of Miami and was like, let's go see what life is like over here. And
listen. I'm telling you, that glow on you is something that you should bottle up because it looks dope. It looks really dope.
I appreciate that, sis.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit. Tell the listeners about you. How would you classify your upbringing?
My upbringing, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the baby's baby of a massive family from the South. And I also learned very early on, having been the son of a pioneer in her own way, my mom being, the youngest of the youngest and leaving her childhood home, the importance of creating family that is extended beyond just bloodline. So I grew up raised around the culture of San Antonio. I was eating menudo at 3 years old. My mama was not cooking menudo. So just being able to soak up a lot of game, being the baby of the baby. My mom's the youngest of 10. I'm the youngest of 5 or 6. I have to remember how many siblings I have sometimes.
You don't know how many siblings?
2 older brothers, 3 older sisters, so it's 6 of us. There we go.
Okay,
And-
so somebody.
but nah, just doing that gave me a chance to be able to witness a lot of people live their life, to learn a lot of what I did not want to do,
Okay.
and also receive a lot of guidance and support as I figured out what I did want to do in my life. And I still receive that now. And so that has come from folks who are on the same ancestral line as me, and some folks who we just came up in the same space or we've crossed paths at different times. And they've always felt like they received the energy of family when they was around me. And I reciprocated the same to them. And because of that, because I grew up around family, have been raised with the value for family, I carry that with me now. Even in a completely new country, where I walk into the mercado, I chop it up with the mamitas, and they like, yeah, that's something about him.
Okay, so okay, you lived in San Antonio your whole life?
Yeah, for the most part, I was there in the same house till I was like 16. Same friend group since I was in elementary, middle school. And I didn't move out of San Antonio till I was 26.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I spent like 4 years in Waco in college, but that's it. Came right back home.
Okay. So, all right. So there's this thing about people that live in cities or areas that are predominantly one race. How did that affect you growing up and choosing who to date? How you saw yourself as a black male? How did that affect you?
I had a very unique experience growing up in San Antonio. The majority of the people I went to school with were Hispanic. I think we were 50% Hispanic, 33% Black, 12% white. That was the high school. And so my first girlfriend in pre-K, she was, Hispanic woman.
Yeah, the girlfriend in pre-K. Can we roll that back?
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm the baby of the baby, so I've been peeping the game. I've been watching players operate for a long time.
Pre-K is wild.
Yeah, but that's for me growing up in that environment. I wouldn't say I was colorblind, but I was much more accepting of the fact that, like, yeah, we all have a unique color, a unique culture, but that doesn't make us any different. And that was what really paved the way for me mentally of how, like, to just walk into a room and know that I belong. I didn't necessarily feel like I didn't belong when I walked into a Hispanic house and broke bread. They treated me like a son, a nephew, a grandson. Spending my days with my best friend up the street as a kid, getting dropped off before school because my mom had to go to work early. And knowing that, like, I'm in this Hispanic house, much darker than the rest of them, but I feel no different than any of them. And so, for dating, I was very open-minded when it come to friend groups. That's why I went to school at Baylor. I was like, I just want to see what it's like to live on the other side of the tracks, is how I described it. And, Baylor being a private university, it's been here since 1845. It's a Christian university. So there was a lot of wealthy evangelical white people from the South who sent their kids to this school. And I learned how to understand and have compassion for them. Also understanding that, like, there is a distinct difference in how we're raised, how we come up, how we see the world. And therefore, that's also given some of us advantages in other ways and has given us some other advantages. Like, for instance, I had friends who didn't know how to sweep and mop and do laundry, and they was 18, 19 years old.
Because their parents did it for them?
Yeah, life had been handed to them. It was easy. And so this was the first time they've ever had real chores. They didn't know how to iron their clothes or how to prepare their outfit for an interview. But I grew up, like, ironing my mama's clothes for the week when she was a nurse, getting my brother's clothes ready for the club. You know what I'm saying? Getting my, and that was just the way I came up.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so let's just talk about going to school and how you grew up. How important was the concept of going to college?
I think culturally, amongst, like, even the household, education was important, is important. College didn't seem like something I was forced to do. It was just seemed inevitable for me. Naturally academic, love studying, love school, found K through 12 to be pretty easy. And I had this desire to continue to learn and further my knowledge. I was very inquisitive as a kid, have remained inquisitive because I've always thought that, like, it's just fun to learn. It's fun to make connections. It's fun to master at least one thing. And then as I go on and explore something else, I find that the same skills that help me master one are the same skills that help me master another. And it's just a different process, a different journey of mastery. But for me, that's why I love education. I can start to explore all of these different subjects, see that there is a connection between all of them in some way, shape, or form, and then use that to, like, navigate my life. Because if I can learn how history, English are also interconnected with world religion, science, philosophy, and psychology, I could probably go about the rest of my life and be pretty level headed.
Understood. Yeah, and I agree with you. So, do you feel like a lot of your peers that you grew up with have that same mindset, or are you like the outlier in that?
Definitely the outlier.
Okay.
And I'm grateful for it because I see that it is a way for me to help support my friends and my family, my people who I came up with, who maybe didn't have the same external motivations like family, community saying, hey, go stick with school, Trev, stay in the books, go to college. It was just kind of a, hey, you need to go to college, but with no real support behind it. And so my friends who don't have that, who didn't come up with that, they may have tried college, decided to drop out. They may have kids a little early and were like, hey, I need to get into the workforce. And I don't blame them for at all for it. As a matter of fact, I've seen my life now being the outlier is I get to be the pioneer. I get to be the one who travels and says like, yo, we got to go check out China. We got to go check out Peru. We got to go see what it's like for black folks in Mexico. Have you ever even been to the mountains? Let's just go to Denver. Let's take a trip. And being able to inspire my friends to do things that I know are beneficial for us, especially folks of color, and especially as men of color. Because if we're not traveling with one another, then we're stuck in the same mindset as the people in our zip code. And that's unfortunate because the world is so huge. And we get the chance to have your own thoughts and your own feelings toward experiences and create the life you want. But it requires someone to help you like know that that's accessible.
Right.
Thankful that I get to be that one for a lot of folks. Two, to know that it's safe for you to go.
Exactly.
and
they really do not believe that it's safe to go a lot of places or even get on a plane. Like,
no. But I mean, as a black man in America, it's not really safe to really step outside your front door. So if that's the mentality that we have, even in our own comfort zone of our community, our zip code, the likelihood of us even exploring anything outside of that is slim, because we've been told this narrative of like, it's not safe for you as a black man outside. But I actually feel safer. This is the safest I've ever felt in my life. And I've traveled many places across the nation and the globe. And I'm like, this is the safest I've ever felt. My nervous system feels more regulated than I even knew was accessible to me.
That's crazy. How does that feel to know that? Like, does that feel like, does it anchor you in any way, shape, or form that you've had to live in that space and didn't know it until you went to someplace else and was like, wow, I can really breathe in that place?
There was a slight touch of anger, some passing anger, but it really turned into like purpose. I was like, oh, I'm really about to change everybody's narrative who's open to coming and exploring this too. Because I recognize like I can't change the whole system. So it does me no good to be angry and to be some virtual advocate or activist, yelling at my phone and posting on Instagram about how mad I am at the system. Like, no. Instead, what can I do? I can invite folks to come check it out. I can just share my story, let folks know that this is real. And, it's exciting because if I feel that way in several other countries, then that means I'm going to continue to explore the rest of this globe while I'm here to see where else I feel safe and celebrated. Because when I walk through this small town in the mountains and they see me with the pick in my head, 4C Afro, they like, yo,
where you come from? And I love it.
We've only heard stories about you. We may have seen you on social media, but we've never seen you cross paths with us, let alone live amongst us.
Wow.
And that's the real power, is like, oh, y'all not only are welcoming here, you celebrate my presence. This is something new as a black man.
That's deep. Do you ever feel like, or have you ever felt survivor's remorse?
Oof. It's been fun to work through that with the people that live here. Funny enough, I did not know that there would be a large community of black folk from across the globe here in this area of the world. But I just left from brunch with 4 other black folk. Monday morning, we in a group chat like, hey, let's link up. Let's grab breakfast. Let's chop it up. We was just doing sound healing and yoga last night at one of the homies' crib. They held the space for us. Another person of color held a festival out here and had us DJ. There were 3 or 4 other black DJs. and it's not as near as much survival remorse because I don't feel like I'm isolated out here. I recognize that I'm not the first one. There are a couple of us who are doing this great migration, solo dolo, not knowing what to expect and finding ourselves right here. We are supported by something so much greater than ourselves because this is a wild ass place to just end up randomly.
Right. And it's a group of you just fellowshipping and
We're doing the same thing we do at the crib. We had a spades night the other night as a celebration for the end of Ramadan. Cause our sister from Kuwait, she out here, she's celebrating her traditions. She's still honoring her ancestral practices. And she is inviting us to come in and celebrate with her. And so what's survivor's remorse when I realize there are Black folk from across the globe who are traveling and finding family outside of what we were told is our fenced-in playground of the United States. And so now it's like, well, how do we, like us as a collective, we're figuring out how do we get more folks like us here? My brother Asar hosting retreats. He been out here in the Valley for 8 years. My brother B, who invited me here, he been here for 3 years. Liz been inviting folks from Jersey and New York and all across here. Sanaa, who's from Kuwait, she's been inviting folks here for the past 4 or 5 years, and she's got a global audience. And so people are becoming more and more aware of it. Do they have the courage and the capacity to do the thing that we're doing, which is to leave it all? We don't have control over that. What we're here to do is bring it to the awareness like, yo, there's a place of peace that is very welcoming to us and is accessible to us. And when you land, you will find more of us.
More of us than you.
I ain't hung out with this many Black folks in the past 4 years when I was living in Seattle. I've been in Peru for 4 months and I've spent way more time around people of color than I did in Seattle, Washington. And that's part of the lower 48.
Wow. Is there a language barrier that you have to overcome? Where you live, that's not funny. It's one of the first things that I think people are gonna want to know. Like, if I go and I say I explore another land or another culture, is there gonna be this barrier of uncomfortableness where I can't communicate my basic needs with you?
Yes.
How do you get over that?
You do the best you can to prepare using apps. You can go to schools, do things online. But to be honest, the best way to do it is to immerse yourself in your day-to-day living practices, speaking the language the best you can, and continuing to learn. Because there's no other replacement for immersion.
Okay.
I live with these folks. I see them every day. If I need to order gas for the house, water, if I need to talk to my landlord, he's Peruano. He speaks some English. But it's wrong for me to come out to his nation and expect him to speak my tongue.
Exactly.
So I'm like, how do I honor this land and the fact that I'm not here to take advantage? I'm here to integrate my life and my well-being into this community. I'm here to spend money with y'all. And because of that, that means I got to speak the language too. And so I go to the Mercado and I walk in there and I'm like, I'm about to say the best I can to order all the vegetables, fruits, and if they sit here and try to have a conversation with me, I started off the first month and a half, I was like, lo siento, mi español es más o menos.
Right.
And because I come to them with that vulnerability,
they accept you and they're like, well, let me help you out. Let's.
What? Because they love and celebrate the fact that I'm here. So they welcome me and they're like, you're doing your best. Thank you. Because we've had some other folks who come from the same land, but who have a completely different approach, and they expect us to just
accommodate that.
But for me, I'm coming in like, there's a language barrier. I'm doing my best to learn each and every day. And the best way for me to learn is to be amongst y'all. And then when I'm at the house, I use the Duolingos, I use all the apps. I took a couple Spanish classes in middle school and in high school. But at the end of the day, like, I got to practice. And the only way I can really practice is if I go out into the world and do my best and work through how uncomfortable it is and how lonely it starts to feel. when a person like me who loves to connect with other people can't do it in a spoken language.
Aww. That's heartfelt though, because you do see a lot of stories, especially about people traveling overseas into different lands and just feeling entitled to their comfort superseding where they're at. And that's just, it's terrible because it ruins the experience. You have no idea what you're missing out on because the people don't want to deal with you, they don't want to share with you. Um, I know when I travel, I like to stay where the locals are. I don't want to be in a tourist spot.
Yeah.
So the idea that it's like you're limiting yourself to just like a resort or something like that, it's just terrible. But okay, so food and health. How do you see your new experience in your new home in terms of like health and wellness and food and the idea of being back in the States, in the mainland?
First of all, you see the skin glowing, you know what I'm saying?
It's different.
It's one of the wildest parts about the food out here. And I say this as I'm staring at a field of corn that I see is infinite amount of corn. And they've been harvesting for the past couple of weeks. The food here spoils fast.
Because it's natural, ain't it? Stay for 2 weeks. We're not gonna talk about that, but yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, my mama used to go to Sam's as a kid and bulk shop, you know, spend $300-400 and load up the deep freezer, the fridge, the pantry, everything. And I recognize, like, some things ain't supposed to last that long.
Like, come on. Okay, so listen, that's not supposed to be in there for the next 4 months. We're not preparing for Armageddon. It should.
Yeah, so it's fun going into the mercado like once or twice a week and going in there and getting these fruits that I know are grown locally. Because I saw the mamita with a sack of bananas on her back at 5 a.m. coming off the mountain, going into the market, you know, like I see where it's coming from. My friend has like 3 avocado trees on his restaurant, like garden, and they have too many avocados. 3 hours down the valley, we start making our way toward the Amazon rainforest and we get mangoes. Too many mangoes. Where if you go down there, there's people with wheelbarrows of mangoes that have fallen over the past few days. And they're taking wheelbarrows into town to sell mangoes for like 1 or 2 soles, which is it equals 25, 50 cents for a fresh, juicy, real, ripe mango. And so being able to eat the food that is like that, one, I don't need to eat nearly as much in order to be full. And so it's nutrient dense. So I'm not stuffing my face so I can feel fulfilled or feel fulfilled. I eat a little brunch and I'm like, yo, I'm stuffed. Like my body doesn't need anything else. I don't need to eat anything more than what I have now. Being able to know that like fresh fruits and veggies are accessible was on my list of things I was calling in before I even knew I would move to Peru. Watching them have a whole ass cow skinned and being chopped up that morning, seeing chickens freshly plucked, and folks are out here shopping. They getting chicken feet right at the mercado, and they like, yeah, pay my little 3 soles, cook this up for the family. I'm gonna take the chicken hearts, get them to the dogs. I'm gonna take the chicken breast, cook that. They using every bit of it.
Okay, so there's no sense of waste.
No waste. And because you don't want to buy too much and knowing that it's gonna spoil in 2-3 days. So you don't really waste the food. You just like, shit, I'm only gonna get what I need.
So what is the level of technology where you're at? Because some people feel like the separation anxiety, like I'm overloaded with all this information, and now I'm kind of removing that. So how does that work for you?
Ooh, so one, Wi-Fi is still here, so that's great. still got access to Wi-Fi. But you start to realize that we have become more dependent on technology and less dependent upon our own skills and abilities as human beings in the West. Because they still do shit the same way they did it 750 years ago. And it works. So being able to separate myself from technology in a bit is great. And I see that as a culture of people who aren't on their phones and bombarded with distractions and alerts and emails. They still have their priorities in check, which is taking care of my health, taking care of my family, taking care of my community, and enjoying their life. So they have like a couple computer labs for the kids who want to do online gaming. You're going right into the town center and you walk right in, you see the kids going hard on the computers, and you're like, yeah, like that's ideal. That's how it was for me when I was going to Arkansas in the summers as a kid. We go to the computer center, we play a few games for a couple hours, we go back outside.
Get up out of there.
You know, it's not a place for us to be 24/7. But in the States, it's so easy to be attached to the phone that it's hard to actually say, I don't need to be attached to this thing 24/7. I get my groceries by just ordering through an app. I don't need to interact with people. So that creates more isolation. I don't need to go into my job and interact with people. I can work from home. Creates more isolation. Right. And then so we are actually less interdependent upon people in the community and more dependent upon this $1,000 computer we carry around. And we lose our sense of self the minute we lose the phone.
Right.
These folks out here don't give a fuck about a phone. They got the flip phone, T9.
But you know what? That probably lasts a whole lot more resilient in an emergency. Them flip phones.
Shit, since we 9,000 feet in the mountains, Cusco 11,000 feet in the mountains. That's an hour away. Ain't no service in between the drive, really. It's just nature.
It's just nature. But I've seen the pictures, I've seen the videos, and it's beautiful. It's like breathtakingly beautiful.
Mm-hmm. People tell me it look like CGI all the time.
It do. It do. So when you think about what you do, and if you can enlighten people on how you got into your practice, which you're very good at. Very surprised. I feel like, yeah, it would take me some years to get to where you're at, but it's dope. Let us know how you got into yoga and like how that is as a Black man performing yoga, what it does.
Well, I got into it in college because, to be honest, I was tired of training to be an athlete. I just been playing sports my whole life. And I was like, bro, I'm tired of doing all this hard ass work, beating my body up. Like, I want to do something that's chill. And I was also in the house of other brothers who I was staying with in college. And it was a discipleship house. So we were all living with our college pastor, a graduate assistant, and we were all dedicated to becoming better versions of ourselves as men, mentally, physically, spiritually, and doing that and with the supportive community. And one of the agreements was that you would do something active, physically active, for 30 minutes, a couple times a week. And we had this accountability chart that we would check it off on. And so knowing I didn't want to train, but also want to do something and had to show up for this accountability thing, I thought yoga would be some like, easy way to stretch, work on flexibility, stay lean. I was wrong as shit.
Easy. No. No, sir.
Yo, I downloaded the app my sophomore year of college and was getting my ass kicked every morning, Monday through Friday, for about 20 to 30 minutes. That's all I had to offer.
You said that's all you had to offer?
All I had to offer. I said, yo, this is hard. All the years of being a Texas athlete, and I ain't never in my life done something.
It's about a different kind of body control.
Yo, it's so demanding because it's asking us to do two things: move the body and be mindful of the breath at the same time. And the breath part was the hardest part because I'm like, you said take one breath. Bitch, I've taken 3. I'm huffing and puffing. What you mean? One breath.
Were you not conditioned like you thought you were? Like, what is it about it? Because I know a lot of people, they see yoga and they think it's for white women and it's got to be this way. It's like, so how breathing? How does that come about in the art of yoga?
So when I realized the things that impact my breathing was my thoughts, I realized why yoga was so damn hard. Because in a workout, I can have all kinds of crazy thoughts, but I can pump up my thoughts with ego and be like, no, push the weight, push harder. No. With yoga, it's like, nah, like this shit intense and you stuck here and you're not even really doing that much. So what is doing all this extra stuff that's making it so difficult? The mind. I got these thoughts telling me that this is difficult, that this is too hard, that I'm not flexible, that I need to be doing this more often, that I should have been doing this, that I need to be able to do that. And don't let me get in the studio because now I feel imposter syndrome because I'm a tall, black, athletic man with abs and muscles who can't do a motherfucking warrior too. So all of this pressure in the mind starts to stress out the body. And so what could be something that is really, it is beneficial, it's creating a container within my own body for shit to emerge, like thoughts that I haven't really taken time to hold space for. Or feelings that have emerged that I'm like, damn, I didn't realize that this triangle pose stretching my hamstring was going to remind me of some shit from middle school. And now I'm crying on my yoga mat. The fuck is going on?
Really? They said that, though, that it will definitely release trauma.
I think of it as like, if there's an intensity in your life that you experienced when you was 14 and you haven't experienced that intensity since you were 14, because why the fuck would you want to go back to that intensity? When the yoga mat shows up, you roll that 6x2 piece of foam out and you target the part of the body where you might feel a similar sensation, thoughts come back up. Because that's how the polyvagal theory works in psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy. Events create thoughts, thoughts create feelings, feelings create actions, actions create events. Events create thoughts, and that cycle, that spiral, can either go upward or downward. And so when that intense sensation comes back to the body and those thoughts come back because of the event that you're in, do you have capacity for the feelings that come up with those thoughts? And do you have the capacity to still choose your actions rather than just being reactive to the thoughts and the feelings? And so yoga does that for me every time I step on the mat, because I don't know what I'm about to run into. I might need actually a softer practice. I may need something a bit more challenging. I may run into some tension that I didn't even know was still in my body. Like, damn, I didn't realize my back was that tight. But by the time I lay down in that shavasana, I'm like, okay, wow. After the workout, I get to rest. I get to receive. After I've given so much physically, I get to receive from my practice, from God, from spirit, from you, wherever you want to describe it. Even on a scientific level, you've done all this work for your body to bring it to a state of relaxation. Now there's a completely different chemical uh process taking up,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like the pharmacy that is your spinal cord that's just pushing out all this stuff in your brain and from your gut is actually sending out the things that you like and that you need and that make it feel good. And so people walk out of yoga classes like, wow, that was amazing.
This is real euphoric right now.
Yeah. And for me, that's what had me like, okay, I've never felt this way after doing something so fucking intense and challenging in my life. This is good. I like this. I'm going to keep doing it. But now 10 and a half years later, and having gone through training and sat with my mentors, I've realized why it's so valuable, why it is so impactful, and how to use this in my day-to-day life to maintain a state of peace that is my birthright. But I wasn't necessarily taught that.
So how would you introduce yoga or something similar to men that are dealing with stress or not really sure that it's their right to be relaxed and experience this? How would you introduce this to them?
If I'm able to work with them one-on-one, it's different. Because first we do have a conversation about what is yoga. Because it's not poses. It's not shapes. It's unity. And then we start to ask ourselves, where do we feel disconnected? Because that's where the yoga practice starts. I got to bring a sense of unity to the places where I believe that I'm not unified. And so if someone feels like they have a disconnection between their mind and body, cool. We'll start with some shapes and poses. Let's just see what that feels like. If someone is like, yo, like I take care of my body, I move, I exercise, I stretch, I'll do all these things, but I have a lot of anxiety. Cool. Let's start talking about meditation. Let's not even talk about meditation. Let's talk about breathing practices. Mm-hmm. Let's just start with that, because you already know how to feel comfortable in your body. So great. That's the only reason we even do the poses, so that when we sit down long enough, whether it's 5-10 minutes, our hip is not the thing that takes us out of meditation. Our back pain is not the thing that distracts us. We already like, oh, I feel comfortable. I can sit here and I can breathe and calm my mind. You know, so if a brother is looking to connect with his body, I'm like, bro, let's start with the poses and we'll start gentle. We'll start with some slow flow. We'll do this thing for 20, 30 minutes like I did. You don't need to do an hour-long practice. That shit's intense. You know, and going to a studio might not necessarily feel comfortable, because that might create even more emotional intensity because you feel exposed, but you don't feel safe to be vulnerable. And that's a complex blend. And for the brothers who just like, man, I just need to calm my mind. I got some anxious thoughts. Shit is driving my mind crazy. I can't really bring it to stillness. Well, let's just focus on the breath for a couple of minutes. Let's do 5 minutes. And I'm going to teach them how to breathe. Because thankfully, you know, God gave us a body that know how to breathe on its own.
Right. You don't have to do nothing.
Yeah. However, if our thinking impacts our breathing and we're not aware of our thoughts, we really robbing ourselves of taking good breaths. So if we've been doing that for 15, 20, 40, 60 years, then shit, I don't know how to breathe. And so giving folks education on like how to breathe, what types of breathing practices there are available to us, and allowing them to play with breathing, to experience what it's like, and to determine for themselves, hey, when I did this breathing practice for 5 minutes, I felt like this. So now I know if I ever want to feel like this, I can do this breathing practice. I got the tool. If I am having a hard time getting some energy in my body, I feel lethargic, I know I can do this other breathing practice and feel energetic, and I don't need a cup of coffee. Wow. I just saved myself $8. I saved myself some time. I saved myself some stress. And my body is turned up. I'm lit right now. Off some shit that was free. You mean to tell me I could have just been sitting here breathing? And so for me, I tell folks, like, it's an ancient self-care practice that all you need is space and will to be able to do it. You don't need shit else.
So how do we get past oftentimes the elephant in the room of, this is not manly, this is women's stuff, this looks gay, or, you know, how do we get past the ego and the pride and, you know, this space where being vulnerable or just even stretching can be perceived as a call to their manhood? How do we do that?
Yeah, I think it starts with first we gotta be aware of where that story came from. Because we didn't necessarily write that story for ourselves. A lot of times we got that from media, from somebody in our family or our community who said something about yoga, stretching, you know, all that other shit, and was like, oh, that's soft, that's gay, that's whatever. And in order to protect ourselves from being exiled by our family and community, we believed it and said, cool, I won't do those things because that's gay, that's soft, and my family won't accept it. And if they won't accept that, then they won't accept me, and I don't want to be isolated. Yeah. I'd much rather stay in the sense of safety in this community, even if that means I limit my experience in life. So we got to address that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So addressing that first and foremost of like, yo, where did that story come from? And is that the truth that I really want to live by? And once an individual comes to terms with the fact that, hey, this isn't necessarily what I believe, it's just what I was conditioned to think about the world, then they can become more open, more curious about the practice of yoga. And once they become curious, yoga gonna do what it does. However, it also requires that they be in a space with a teacher who is able to see them for who they are and meet them where they are. My teachers told me there's a space for everybody. You don't have to be the one to hold it.
Right.
And so that means there's some spaces out there that are not for me. And that means some people don't know how to hold space for me. Cool. That means I get to explore and experiment. But first and foremost, I know how to hold space for me before anybody else does. Which is why I prioritize at-home practice for the past 10.5 years. Where I told you I was using the app. I was like, I don't need a studio. I just need guidance. Tell me what pose to do. Help me figure out when to breathe. And let me do this thing in the comfort of my own home, where I might burn my Palo Santo, I might burn my sage, and I might fire up the joint. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm gonna get my space right.
Okay. Have you ever tried to do yoga and you was a little too fired up and it did not go as you thought it was going to go?
I tried to teach a class high once, and I was like, this is not responsible.
Teach a class. Why would you do that?
Because my practice at home with the ganja was so good, I was like, this gonna be perfect for the folks on a Friday at 12 o'clock. And you know what? It was just, it disrupted my ability to hold space for them. Right? Because I came in off the ganja, but they wasn't. So we're not even on the same frequency. We don't even have the same mentality right now. I'm coming in ease, I'm chilling. All right, well, what's up, y'all? We finna do a little slow flow to down plays R&B, you know what I'm saying? Take care of yourself. But I wasn't really present with the people who were in the room as well as I could have been had I not. But I say that to say, like, if you go to a yoga class high, like, I mean, shit, do your thing. However,
yes, that definitely is your thing.
But mindful moderation is key. Because the only difference between it being a medicine and it being a poison is the dosage. If I'm too faded and I know I'm too faded and I did this to myself, then yeah, what's the consequences of me not being mindful and practicing moderation? However, if I know that today was a little bit stressful and smoking this herb does help me out, especially if I put some rose petal, a little Palo Santo, maybe some chamomile in the J and fire that up. Now I'm like, okay, now I can go to class. I only took, a couple hits, let that settle in. If I need an extra one before going into the studio, maybe, and then let me go into my practice. So that way I'm not too far gone. I actually did exactly what I needed. I use this as support to help me experience a sense of peace so that I can go and do the thing that I want to go do. And so, yeah, mindful moderation is going to be key when it comes to that. But for men in general, it just really starts with like, knowing that it's not soft. That's a story that you received from somebody else that you didn't know it, but you've chosen to believe. Being curious about the thing that you have yet to experience, just to see what it's like for you from your own experiential wisdom, not from somebody else's story that they made up because they saw some shit online that they judged. And then saying, how can I continue to try this? Not just one time, but I'm going to test it and retest it because I want to be able to say for myself, this ain't for me.
Okay.
Or I might get into it and be like, you know what?
Like, oh, this is definitely it. I like it.
I'm really fucking with this yoga shit, dog.
Okay. I couldn't do this pose before, but I feel like I can try it now.
Or the way I interact with my kids after that class, bro, I wasn't really tripping no more. My wife came in from a hard day at the job, but I did 30 minutes of stretching, and honestly, I was able to hold space for her emotions. I wasn't really tripping. I wasn't taking shit personal. Wow. That's the why I really do it, is because I see the benefit that it would have had on my childhood had my mom and had my family been practicing what I do.
Really?
And to say they did an amazing job. They did great. And had they had the tools that I have and been practicing it, ancestrally, like the whole lineage of our family would be completely different right now. And I can't change the past. However, I can make a huge impact on my present life and inspire some other folks to help, really shape the future for their kids and change their household because they come into every situation with their family with a different perspective and a certain level of resilience amongst emotions. They've taken care of their body. They did it for free if they really want to, at the crib. And because of that, the way that they interact with the world around them becomes much more positive, much more peaceful, much more joyful, and the impact that it has on the kids when they go to school because they have a dad who did some breathing practices that morning.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or mom was like, wow, like I stretched my body and my back was tight, but now I'm not as tense from the physical tension. And also I'm not as tense mentally. So now I'm more nurturing and I'm more comforting, I'm more loving, I'm softer. And the impact that it can have on kids is astronomical.
Right.
So for me, that's why I'm like, this is bigger than just shapes and poses. Like, this is generational healing. This shit comes from ancient Kemet and India, where ganja and yoga are very popular.
Okay, like these two things do not just mean one thing and another thing. Like they can match together.
It's all interconnected.
So playing in business, do you ever fear that making this business is going to dim your light and your joy for it?
Without a clear vision, hell yeah, it did.
Really?
And without a vision that was from a place of selfless service, it did. It disrupted. It disrupted my ability to enjoy what I was doing because it felt like I needed to make something happen from it. I needed money. I needed to make a difference. I needed to be famous. I needed XYZ. But no, what I actually get to do is to be a light for a version of me that I wish I could have had. And I'm like, cool. At 19 years old or 18, I knew I needed this practice, but I needed a certain type of guidance. As a beginner, I could just show up as the teacher that I was looking for at 18.
Mm.
Wow, what a service. Now I get to also see it with a clear vision of like, oh, I'm serving men who are like my brother, like my uncles, like my father, who have children, have a lot of responsibility, but don't have a place to really release and take care of themselves. I'm serving them. Wow, I'm getting to serve my family. And I'm serving their kids because I'm helping their fathers and their mothers become much more peaceful, much more ease, more emotionally intelligent, have some tools to experience how to navigate intense situations within their own mind. Wow. So this is actually not just a business. I am serving the globe and generations to come and generations that are here with the work that I'm doing. And so, yeah, it's playfulness now because I'm like, y'all don't even know what I'm about to do for your whole family right now. You know what I'm saying? Your whole line is about to be healed because of your decision to follow
To follow
my lifestyle.
Okay, I like that. So when you talk about lifestyle and you see some of these documentaries about yoga, cults, and all this other stuff, like how do you keep a fine line? Because I really feel like certain things create this level of mysticism about a person and their abilities, and people become locked into the individual and not the experience. Like how do you keep a good level head and ego in check when you have a growing following, a growing bunch of people that look to you to create this space for them? How do you do that?
Really, it comes down to a few things. The first one that comes to mind is having clear vision. Again, why do I do what I do? Because if I recognize that I'm doing this to help heal families and households, then of course it's going to draw a large audience. that's what I can expect that to happen. Especially because I'm gonna be 100. Like, I know I'm a physically attractive person. That right there alone draws people in. A nice smile, charisma, the ability to articulate yourself and to have a physical body like mine, it attracts people. So I'm going to draw a large uh, audience of folks. I think Tank said it, like, when you become attractive, you're not just attractive to a certain type of people, you're just attractive. So you're going to attract. So not letting your ego get in the way of what you attract, but remaining diligent and radically devoted to the vision. That's one. But before that, the foundation of it, you gotta have some morals about yourself. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you ain't acting right, like, then anything that come your way in abundance, money, fame, whatever it is, like, you gonna spoil it. And so, like, that, even the crazy part with yoga is, like, they got a whole set of morals before you even get into shapes and poses if you really follow the path.
Really?
The yamas and niyamas. That's the first and second limb of the Yoga Sutra, or the 8 limbs of yoga. The third one is asana. That's posture. So before they even put you in a shape of pose, they be like, get your shit together, act right. Fuck, we sitting here doing poses for, and you trying to go into meditation if you ain't living right. The first thing that they study is nonviolence. Ahimsa. Are you being violent towards yourself and toward the world around you? If so, start there.
Just start there.
Start there. The next one, ahimsa. Honesty. Oh no, that's yeah. What is it? Satya, I think. Honesty. Are you being nonviolent? Great. Are you being honest? Great. If you ain't doing them 2 things, start there. We're not doing no meditation. We're not doing no breath work. We're not reaching no transcendental states of awareness. You need to figure out how to act right on this earth because you are in this body. And so anytime there's fame, anything like that, I come back to my morals and I come back to my vision. What's my intention behind what I do? Because if I'm seeking to just earn money, that's going to come and go. Right. And if I'm seeking to just be famous and receive external validation, that too is going to just come and go. But my vision is here. That's constant. It's going to adjust based on what I'm doing and how the world is receiving it. But my vision is still very clear. And my morals, I'm not shifting on that. And if people really want to take it somewhere, if you want to be culturally relevant for the people of color, the sun-kissed folks, the 42 laws of Ma'at, read those at the start of each day and read them right before going to bed. Set yourself morally correct. 42 laws of Ma'at ain't like the 10 Commandments where it says, thou shalt not. It says, I have not. So it's accountability.
To keep going throughout the day to make sure that you can.
I have not and I will not.
Where would somebody find that? Like, find that commandment or
the 42 laws of Ma'at and the Yoga and the Yamas and Niyamas, both on Google. You can find my images. Easy. Go on YouTube, look them up. I say start there because that's just a moral compass. It's just some words that you read and you abide by. And it's not to say that you are limited in any way. It says, with the divine free will that we are given, this is how you cultivate a life of peace, joy, service, love, power, and abundance. You follow these ordinances. You live by this code so that no matter the external situation that you find yourself in, whether you beefing with somebody in the streets or your pocket's a little short, you don't switch up the way you act.
That's true.
Yeah.
And the reason why I ask that is because I really feel like people are always in a state of, or most people are in a state of survival. And so they don't really know where to look because oftentimes religion didn't sway them in the right way. The way, they've got this belief, but the person that's supposed to be guiding them through that belief is living another way or has more than them and isn't sharing. So when I ask you where can they find that, it's resources for people to find things that might resonate with them a little bit better than having to go sit in a brick and mortar and figure it out.
Yeah.
Give them options.
Yeah. Places that have helped me. I love reading, love books. This is an ancient practice that people have, from our ancestors, have given us the gift of knowledge and wisdom through shared writings and storytelling. So read somebody else's story, receive the wisdom. You won't bump your head nearly as much. But if folks don't want to read, if schedules feel a little tight, whatever the case may be, podcasts. Audiobooks are helpful. Podcasts are nice because it's a conversation between folks. However, that means you got to do some research behind who are the podcasts that nurture your soul. Who are the ones that are really, you can say, these are my teachers. Because after listening to one podcast, I actually find someone as a guest on a different podcast and say, wow, I want to go to follow their show. I'm going to listen to them and I'm inspire them. And I follow them on YouTube and I follow them on Instagram. And the beautiful aspect of that is if you can start to find these people on social media, your algorithm starts to give you different things on your feed. So then the things that you're taking in on a daily basis are not the drama of them other accounts. This is the things that you're like, wow, these things really inspire me. They motivate me. They help me change my perspective. These are things I screenshot or that I send to my family and friends that help me become a better version of myself, that give me a different way to think and process my emotions. And therefore, you start to change everything that you're consuming. So if you can't change the quality of the food because you don't live in Peru and you got the mercado down the street, you can at least change the content that you consume on your phone by changing up. Instead of listening to this playlist, you listen to a podcast. Instead of just reading through tweets and threads, you read a book, even if it's 15 pages or just 20 minutes. Instead of venting on social media, you vent in your journal.
Right.
And experience what it's like to say something without judgment and without fear of being seen, and cultivate a sense of safety in your own solitude.
Something to think about. I don't think a lot of people are comfortable being alone in their own solitude, in their own thoughts. And, so the idea that I'm going to be vulnerable with myself and be honest with what's really happening in my head, not what I tell everybody or how I show up. I think that's a scary concept for people, especially men, when they have to think about all the things that come with being a man and what is not a man, and how sometimes they might show up as not a man even though they feel like it or they have the pressures of it. I just feel like a lot of people are very scared to show up in solitude.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of guts.
Because we know we are our greatest witness. We know what we've done better than anybody else has. However, if we also are looking at ourselves with the same judgmental thought process that other people.
You better not start that.
You know what I'm saying?
Don't tell nobody to look at themselves before they judge somebody. Oh no, that would never work.
But the scripture say that he like, before you talk about the splinter in your brother's eye, pull out the plank that's in yours. Nigga, like a plank and a splinter is a huge contrast, my boy. You talking about a 2x4 in my eye? So you mean to tell me I got a lot. That happened to that was one thing they did. What's the pattern of behavior in my life that is exactly identical to what they did one time? And how do I have grace for the pattern that has led to this moment of awareness? How do I accept the fact that those are ways of living that actually don't agree with? And how do I then change what I'm going to do without knowing what's going to happen next? That's the work. And that's why it can be real intense for somebody to sit by themselves and be like, damn, I got to look at everything I've done without being distracted by my phone, by social media, by whoever. And then I got to learn to accept the fact that I did those things
It's like nasty work.
And then you want me to do something different? Like, I done got comfortable in the mess now. I don't even want to change nothing. Like, but some folks are accustomed to a filthy house because that's all they've ever grown up in. They learn to be comfortable in it. However, that filthy house still does not mean it's healthy for them. It's just a place of comfort. And that's the difference. Is your comfort zone can be unhealthy, but you've grown just that comfortable to it. But right outside the comfort zone is the growth zone. But that means we're going to be uncomfortable.
For a long time sometimes.
And sometimes we take shit too far and we get overwhelmed because we try to do the most, getting out of our comfort zone. Not realizing you ain't really built for that just yet. Just yet, though. Because at some point, you stay in that growth zone long enough, your growth zone becomes a comfort zone. True. And now what used to be overwhelming is now your growth zone. So now you get to play in that. You're like, shit, I can take things up a little notch. You know what I'm saying? I might go to a yoga class and try a handstand. I might fuck around.
Not on my face, no.
I might fuck around. I ain't saying I will. Yeah, but today I'm feeling like shit. It ain't as scary as it was 2 months ago when I first started. I might fuck around and see some.
You can pull the hamstring. No. Try it in moderation. Don't jump in listening to trash. Because them bills, them medical bills are still going to be yours. Take nothing from Peru, I promise you. He ain't. So control yourself.
Use a wall.
All right. So we are almost up on our time, but I do have one last question for you. In terms of the ListNing project, what do you think people should listen for in terms of that?
Seek to understand before being understood. No matter how personal it might feel when they decide to be vulnerable with you. It is important for people to approach someone with curiosity before judgment. And to catch ourselves when we are judging rather than being curious. And so if listening to a man share something and it starts to seem like, oh, this may be like a moment where he's kind of being vulnerable. And it might not equal what your vulnerability is, because you've been doing you much more, someone might be more familiar with their feelings. They might have a history of being a bit more emotionally expressive, having spaces that were supportive of their emotional expression. Not necessarily the case for most men, at least not my experience. But what does help men become more vulnerable and most people is curiosity. You ask them questions about themselves, about their experience, questions that they may not have actually thought about themselves. And you do it with non-attachment. You're not listening with the intent to find some hole to penetrate and pry them open. You're like, oh, okay. It sounds like you really had fun at your guys' day out. That's cool. What did you really enjoy about that? Oh, that's sweet. Like, how was it like to just be around the guys, to be around bros for a while, be around your brothers? Oh, the thing at work is stressing you out. I see. Like, I understand. What's bothering you at the job? Having this moment of just curiosity and openness to whatever is shared is key for men to feel safe and supported in their emotional expression. Because men have a tendency to do that for others all the time, and that's why they tend to explode. It's because all they've done is just hold space, hold space, hold space, hold space. But ain't nobody checked on them. Nobody's asked them how they doing. And half the time, I've experienced that I might not ask somebody how they doing. They just come up to me and share with me how they doing. And they expect me to hold the space. And I can do that. And I have done that. And I'm looking for what the Quechua people of Peru call Aini, sacred reciprocity. I need to know that if I hold space for you today, that you can hold space for me tomorrow. And so that's the key. Because if we seek to understand before being understood, then we're not approaching the conversation with any objective about getting my point across. We're coming to this saying, I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes. I don't know how your day has been. And I don't know what you're thinking, feeling, or what your desires are. And so I would like to know. So I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to be curious. And whatever you share with me, I will do my best not to judge, but instead just see you for who you are. Another human being who is going through a complex thing called life, where they're trying to balance fears and desires and pleasures, all with a sense of personal growth and development. And it's not easy. But if we can approach one another with that sense of compassion, especially for the ListNing project, to do that, listen, ask questions and listen.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Trevor, spending your day with me, or at least an hour with me. Definitely we'll have to do this again and just chop it up. But I really do appreciate you. I think the listeners will get a whole lot from what you provided, and it was genuine, it was honest, it was real, um, as I expected it would be. And, you know, it's refreshing that, again, we can see us in different parts of the world thriving, living, trying different things. And even if it isn't easy, it's still possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me here to have this conversation with you. You're doing an amazing thing here
Thank
with
you.
the ListNing project, which is to open the floor, to be curious about somebody else's experience. And that way they can share their wisdom and share their medicine with the world. That's what we're experiencing this stuff for. We got a testimony. We're here to share it, and you're providing the space for that to happen. And you're doing the thing that we just talked about. You're seeking to understand and then finding ways to also share so that I
Yes.
can see that I'm being understood. And I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Don't go nowhere.